These 8 advanced English words will sharpen your fluency and your IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge score. And you won't just memorize them. You'll meet each one inside the story, feel what it means, then prove you caught it. That's how your brain keeps them for good. Yara had been hunting dead ships for a living for 9 years, and she had never once felt sorry for one until she found the Selene. The great transport hung silent and dark at the edge of the system, exactly the kind of wreck that could clear her debts forever. All she had to do was take it apart. She had no idea that the dead ship was not dead at all. Yara made her living the hard way, alone in a small ship, drifting the empty lanes between the stars to scavenge the dead. She found wrecks, stripped them for metal and parts, and sold the scrap. It was lonely, dangerous work, and lately it had not paid. She was drowning in debt, a debt so deep that one good find could either save her or sink her for good. The Selene, vast and silent on her screens, looked like salvation. The Selene was an old colony hull, the kind that had once carried thousands of settlers toward new worlds. This one had clearly never arrived. It had been adrift for 70 years, lost and forgotten, its great hull scarred by dust and time. Yara cut her way through the airlock and floated into a long, dark, hollow corridor. The ship was utterly silent, the silence of a tomb that had been adrift in the dark for a lifetime. She moved deeper, her lamp throwing long shadows, hunting for the engine core and the precious metals around it. Instead, she found the cargo hold. And there she stopped, and her blood ran cold. The cargo of the Selene was not metal or grain. It was people. Row upon row of frozen sleepers in their pods, thousands of colonists sealed in ice, exactly where they had lain down 70 years before. Yara was certain they were long dead, but when she wiped the frost from the nearest pod, a small green light still glowed there, faint but steady. The sleeper inside was alive. Somehow, every one of them was still alive. Deep in the silent hull, against all reason, a single faithful machine had kept them frozen and breathing for 70 years. And it had been waiting, all that time, for someone to come and rouse them. No one ever had. No one had even tried to rouse the dead ship, because everyone, exactly like Yara, had assumed it was a grave. And there Yara faced the cruelest choice of her life. To claim the Selene as salvage, the law was clear. She had to register the ship as dead and abandoned. To strip it for the fortune that would clear every debt she would have to cut its power. And the moment the power died, so would the thousands of sleepers it had kept alive for 70 years. She floated in the cold and dark, and she began to weigh it. A fortune that would save her own life against thousands of lives that no one would ever miss. She weighed them again and again, and hated herself for how long it took. Then she found the ship's log. The Selene's guidance had failed in its 3rd year, leaving it adrift and impossible to steer. The crew could have saved themselves. Instead, every one of them had given up their own places in the cold sleep pods and their own share of the air and the power to keep the colonists alive a few years longer, and then a few more, buying time in the desperate hope that one day a passing ship might find them. They had died, one by one, so that strangers might live. And the ship's faithful machine had carried on their work for 70 silent years. Yara looked at the fortune all around her, enough metal to make her rich, enough to end her debt forever, and she found, to her own surprise, that she could not touch it. To scavenge this ship would not be salvage. It would be murder. The money would buy her an easy life and a hollow, sleepless one. Every comfortable night would ring hollow with the thought of the lights she had switched off. So she did the one thing that a wiser, richer person would have called madness. She did not strip the Selene. She spent her own last fuel and her own last credits nudging the great hull back onto a course, toward the nearest world with people on it, with doctors, with help. She sent out a distress call on every channel she had, begging anyone who heard it to come and rouse the sleepers of the Selene. Then, nearly out of air herself, she turned for home. Yara never did clear her debts. She went home as poor as she had left, and a good deal poorer. But 8 months later, the news reached even her quiet corner of the dark. A lost colony ship called the Selene had been found drifting toward a settled world, and its thousands of frozen passengers had been safely roused, alive and whole, 70 years after they were given up for lost. They never learned her name, The crew who had saved them first, 70 years before, had no name they would ever learn either. Yara had simply done what that long-dead crew had done. She had weighed a fortune against strangers and chosen the strangers. And for the first time in 9 years, looking at her empty accounts, she did not feel poor at all. The cargo she had carried home was worth more than any scrap in the galaxy. Now, and did you catch all 8? Let's find out. A noun for the main body or frame of a ship or spacecraft. It's the great outer shell of a boat that sits down in the water. The Selene's was a vast old colony one, scarred by dust and time. She floated through the dark. What? The body of the ship, of the silent old colony vessel?
The word is hull.
The ship's hull was cracked open on the rocks during the storm. A noun for the goods carried by a ship, plane, or spacecraft. It's the load of crates and containers a freight ship hauls across the sea. The Selene's turned out to be not metal or grain, but frozen people. The what of the Selene, the load it carried, was thousands of sleepers frozen in their pods.
The word is cargo.
The huge ship carried a cargo of grain across the ocean. A noun for money that you owe to someone and must pay back. It's the heavy load of borrowed money hanging over your head. Yara was drowning in this, and one good find could save or sink her. She was drowning in what? Money she owed, so deep that one wreck could save or sink her? The word is debt. After years of borrowing, the company was buried in debt. A verb meaning to carefully consider and compare, as if on a balance. It's what you do when you slowly balance the good and bad of a choice. Yara did this in the dark. A fortune against thousands of lives. She began to do what? Carefully balance a fortune against thousands of lives no one would miss.
The word is weigh.
She had to weigh the risks carefully before making her decision. An adjective for floating freely, with no power to steer or stop. It describes a boat with no engine, carried wherever the current takes it. The Selene had been this for 70 years, lost and helpless. The great ship had been, what? Floating with no way to steer for 70 years, lost in the dark?
The word is adrift.
The little boat was left adrift, far from any shore. An adjective meaning empty inside, also empty of real feeling or worth. It describes an empty log, or a victory that brings no real happiness. The ship's corridors were this, and so would be any joy bought by stripping it. Every comfortable night would ring what? Empty and joyless, with the thought of the lights she switched off. The word is hollow. His apology felt hollow, as if he did not mean a word of it. A verb meaning to search through waste or wrecks for anything useful. It's what a gull does, picking through a rubbish tip for scraps of food. Yara made her living doing this to dead ships for their metal and parts. She had come to do what? Pick through the wreck for anything useful until she found the sleepers.
The word is scavenge.
After the storm, people went down to scavenge the beach for driftwood. A verb meaning to wake someone from sleep or stir them into action. It's what an alarm does, dragging you up out of a deep sleep. A faithful machine had waited 70 years for someone to do this to the sleepers. The ship had waited 70 years for someone to come and do what? Wake the sleepers?
The word is rouse.
It was so hard to rouse the children early on a cold winter morning. Quick recap. How many do you still remember?
Hull. Cargo.
Debt.
Weigh. Adrift.
Hollow.
Scavenge. Rouse.
A new English story every day. Subscribe and master advanced words the way your brain actually keeps them, inside a story you won't forget.